Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Before I get started, I would just like to give some updates, because in the first video that I uploaded for 2021, I had mentioned that I was going to tackle 2 resolutions this year, which the first resolution is to lose some weight, and the second one is to knock out some of the recommended books that are on my to-be-read reading list. And so far, I've been able to drop 10 pounds, which that was just by cutting out fried foods, unhealthy snacking, and sodas. So that's where I am as far as my weight loss goes. But as far as the second resolution is concerned, this video is going to be my first book review of the year, where I'm reviewing a book that was recommended to me, which, as the title says, this weekend I'm reviewing the manga Gyo by Junji Ito, and this was recommended to me by the fabulous artist Lisa Shin. Now, I haven't read too much Ito, but at this point I can safely assume that the ongoing theme in his books is going to be in regards to body horror, which, as many of you know, body horror freaks me out, but at the same time I'm absolutely fascinated by it. So, as you can imagine, this book was a gross out. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's find out what you can expect with this manga. And Lisa, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy this review. Gyo by Junji Ito provides its reader not only with the story that I'm about to describe, but it also provides 2 bonus stories at the end. One of which is called The Sad Tale of the Principal Post, and the other is called The Enigma of the Amigara Fault, which I think both of these stories complemented the primary work very well. Now, with Gyo, this is a biological horror story, one that focuses on a forgotten chemical warfare that has now gone horribly wrong. And with that in mind, it presents to us the characters by the name of Tadashi and his girlfriend Kaori, who are vacationing in Okinawa. And while they're here to get some quality time together, they discover there's a horrible stench coming from the ocean that's known as the Death Stench. Well, if this wasn't enough to ruin their vacation, eventually the culprits emerge from the ocean, and they discover that it's these zombified sea life creatures that are being carried by man-made machines. Well, even though Tadashi and Kaori are able to return to Tokyo, as soon as they get home, they discover that this is much more catastrophic and widespread than what they expected, because with these machines that run on the gas of dead bodies, they have now upgraded to using humans as their host. Gyo by Junji Ito was a serial that appeared in a weekly manga magazine called Big Comic Spirits, where it ran from 2001 to 2002. In the past, Ito noted he is terrified of sharks, and that a couple of scenes in Gyo were influenced by Steven Spielberg's Jaws. In particular, Ito said Spielberg had masterfully captured the essence of fear in the form of a man-eating shark. Yet Ito thought that fear would be even greater in a man-eating shark that could also walk on land. The overall theme for Gyo was influenced by World War II military experiments, chemical warfare, and weapons of mass destruction. In an interview conducted by Ben K. with Grape Japan, Ito explained that when he was a child, his parents, who were of the war generation, told him war stories. Because of this, Ito understood that war was a scary thing, and he feared that when he grew up, he would be drafted as a soldier. This fear led to his anti-war outlook. Fun facts. Here's a few things you might not know about Junji Ito. In a Viz interview, Ito explained the first manga he read happened to be a horror manga called Mummy Teacher, which influenced him to create at a young age. When asked about the theme of body horror in his work, Ito noted that he wasn't consciously focusing on that subgenre, but he does believe the human mind is the scariest part of oneself, And when the body manifests these fears, the body then becomes the scariest part. In an interview conducted by James Whitbrook in Gizmodo, Ito noted that horror tends to stimulate an interest in the extremes of existence, like curiosity, fear, and the grotesque. Aside from Ito specializing in horror, he has produced an autobiographical manga series called Yon and Mew, which is about his life with his cats. Now that we have that out of the way, it's time to move on to the spoiler section of this video, which, if you haven't read this manga before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you wish to click away, just scroll down to the comments section and you'll see that I have a pinned comment at the top. Inside of that comment is a timestamp. If you were to click that, it will redirect you away from the spoilers and bring you to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone has had the opportunity to click away, I'd like to talk about a few of my favorite moments, which the first one that comes to mind regards the shark attack home invasion scene. Now, at this point, all hell has broken loose. Meanwhile, Kaori and Tadashi are taking refuge in his uncle's vacation home, and this is when they see a huge-ass great white shark go walking by their windows. And as luck would have it, of course, the shark breaks in and chases them upstairs. From here, they take refuge in one of the bedrooms where the shark breaks down the bedroom door, and Tadashi has to fight the shark off single-handedly with a lamp. So, y'all are gonna laugh at me, but when I was a kid, Jaws scared the ever-loving living hell out of me. And it was to the point where I was sometimes afraid to swim in swimming pools because I thought there was a shark under the water. Also, to make this fear even more irrational, I honestly believed that a shark could stalk me on land and even bust into my bedroom while I was sleeping. And reading this in Gyo actually makes me feel a little comforted to know that I wasn't the only one who had these irrational fears. My second favorite moment regards the entirety of Kaori's transformation, which at first I didn't think she was infected, but when she started smelling the death stench come from her own body, I knew we were in for a gross out. And of course, Ito does not shy away from this whatsoever because he depicts images of her bloating and rotting while she's still alive. Then, to make matters worse, she works up the courage to look in the mirror, and when she sees that she's transformed from this attractive young woman into a bloated monstrosity, she tries to kill herself twice, but she fails doing so both times. Well, because of what's going on, Tadashi takes Kaori to his uncle who's a scientist, and he leaves her in what he believes is good hands. However, when he returns, he discovers that his uncle has attached her to one of the war machines, and so the machine can feed off the gases that her body is producing. There's a huge tube that's going down her throat and another one that's going up her ass. And y'all, even though I knew this moment was coming once I discovered that she was starting to stink, I didn't really want to imagine it, but of course, we see what goes on, and the way that this is depicted with her still being alive, although she's in a comatose state, was really like having a bucket of ice water get dumped on me. Like, the last time I was really this repulsed was when I watched The Human Centipede for the first time. My final favorite moment regards the death stench circus, which is even more batshit crazy than anything I just described. But what happens here is Tadashi is looking for Kaori because she ran away, and in the process of looking for her, he comes across this tent where he hears circus music. So because of him being curious, he goes to check it out and discovers the ringmaster of the show has gone completely insane, and despite the fact that all of his animals and most of his crew are now being carried around by the war machines, the show has continued forward. But to top this off, we have some pretty ghastly visuals here because what happens next is these guys come onto the showroom floor and they're carrying this bloated man who's been infected with the death stench. And as the tent is starting to fill up with his fumes, the bloated guy takes a torch and blows his gas onto the flame, which ignites all of the fumes in the tent, and we see hidden within the fumes all of these deathly and monstrous faces, where if it had not been for the fire, we would not have been able to see these images with our naked eye. Now, I absolutely love this scene because I've never seen anything like it before, and it was just absolutely shocking and repulsive to see how everything was playing out. And I can't help but think that maybe this is bringing a whole other level to the phrase silent but violent. Out of all of the characters in Gyo, I feel like Dr. Nagi is the perfect candidate for this segment. Now, at first, I really thought he was cool, but then when he took Kaori's catatonic body and put her in a war machine, then told Tadishi that she was dead, I got so mad I could have spewed hot piss. And let me tell you, had I been Tadishi, my fat gay ass would have flipped the script on this crazy little dickweed. Because you know what? Ever since I was in high school, I've been on psych meds. And the older I get, the more meds they put me on. So if he really wants to see crazy, shoot. Just let me take myself off my meds for a few days, and then I'll really show him what Knuckin' Futz looks like. My damn. Gyo was one hell of a manga, and before I started this, I honestly had no clue that it was going to spiral out into this type of a catastrophe, so that was a pleasant surprise. However, I was somewhat let down at the end because I had a few questions that were left unanswered, and I just really was hoping to receive an answer. But the longer I sat and thought about it, the more I warmed up to its blunt ending, because I tend to think that if my questions were answered, I might have received a ray of hope. And Gyo is not that kind of a book. As a matter of fact, it's a very hopeless and depressing book because it poses the question of what would you do if life as you knew it ended and you were stuck in a post-apocalyptic world and there was nothing you could do about it. So yeah, that's a pretty dark and depressing question to ponder. And as a matter of fact, with me reading this during COVID, I will admit that it did mess with my anxiety. But that doesn't mean this is a bad book, it just simply means that it's able to affect the reader. Now, aside from that, the more important subjects of Gyo focuses on the dangers of nuclear weapons and how quickly chemical warfare can get out of hand. Meanwhile, it presents a scenario that suggests what humankind might create for one war could have negative long-term effects for decades and generations later. So aside from those important topics, it does of course have the whole theme of body horror going on, which, as I've said numerous times before, body horror freaks me out because it comments on how our bodies cheat us and there's nothing we can do about it. And with themes aside, I really feel like Gyo was a very interesting and original concept. Also, I kind of got the vibe that it was like this twisted variation of the steampunk genre, except instead of the machines running on steam, they're running on the gases that are produced by our rotting bodies while we're in a comatose state. So, at the end of the day, this book didn't scare me, but there was tons of scenes that were very visceral. The whole concept was extremely disturbing, and there were quite a few times where I found myself gritting my teeth and curling my toes. So yeah, this was really a great gross out. Gyo by Junji Ito is a deeply unsettling story that I grew to love after I had the opportunity to digest everything. And if you're looking to get repulsed while receiving some really good social commentary on being anti-war, this is the perfect book for you if you have the stomach. On to the questions. My first question is, aside from Junji Ito, what other horror manga creator would you recommend? Also, since Junji Ito is my gateway drug into horror manga, who was your gateway drug? Load up the comments. Now that we have that covered, it's time to close out the video. But before I do, I would like to say thank you to Lisa G, as well as J.L. Mulvihill, which J.L. Mulvihill is a young adult fantasy steampunk author, and you can find her books available in print, ebook, and audiobook. Also, I would like to thank Melody Romeo, which Melody Romeo is a historic fiction and fantasy author, which you can find her books in print and ebook wherever books are sold. And if you're wondering why I'm giving a shout out to these wonderful people, it's because they've had the opportunity to contribute to my Patreon account. And if you would like to contribute as well, there's a link available in the description section of this video, which if you would like to contribute $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. And if you would like to have a certain career tied to your name, just let me know and I'll give that a shout out as well, such as how I did with the authors who I mentioned. Also, I do have a $10 option, and this will still give you the shout out at the end of my videos, but I also do creepy photography, and once a month I'll send you over a creepy image that you can print off and do whatever you like with. So if you can do that, that's awesome. If not, no sweat. I just hope you return to this channel so we can have fun. And if you would like to hit me up on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are all available in the description section as well. And if you have yet to subscribe to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a wonderful week and sweet nightmares.